Oh, it's Lion here with HobbiesofaMan once again, and today we're going to be doing another manga review. Today we're going to be looking at the third arc of Mashle called the Magia Lupus arc, I think, which is covered in the last chapter in book 2, all of book 3, all of book 4, and the first half of book 5. And it's pretty good. So let's get right into the review here. I'm not going to bother with the book facts because you guys can just go watch the first review I did for Mashle. That is in the playlist that should be featured at the end of this video. So yeah, let's jump into it. The premise here is that Mash and his friends end up having to battle against the Magia Lupus, which are the top members of the Lang dormitory. And, well, shit hits the fan, and it has to be kind of serious, right? So, yeah. Let's move on to the plot line here. It introduces the three houses properly. There's Adler, there's Orca, and there's Lang. And Adler is basically Gryffindor. They have a hawk or an eagle for their mascot. Orca is basically Ravenclaw, and they have an orca for their mascot. Honestly, that one's a little bit too on the nose, in my opinion. And then we have Lang, who are basically the Slytherins, and they have a wolf for their mascot. And they're all in this competition, always, to see who can get the most coins so that they can prop up the next Divine Visionary, right? So it is what it is. Mash ends up getting a gold coin, and then they flash back to the sorting, and basically it's a really kind of simple scene. It's mostly a comedy sketch kind of situation where there's this unicorn. They have to touch its horn, and based on that, it can decide where they belong. And they couldn't really decide where Mash belongs, so it just put him in Adler, and so he ended up there. And then we move on. We have Mash walking around just the campus. He's just kind of lost by himself. He ends up saving Silva from Abel, who is basically punishing him for failing, which sucks, but kind of works. Evil guys are going to be evil to each other. It's just how it goes. And Mash ends up saving Silva from Abel through a short fight, so he ends up on Abel's shit list. And then the next day, Mash and Silva are in the infirmary, and Silva's really unsure about the situation. He doesn't know how to feel about the fact that someone he bullied saved him, right? And I don't think that this is going to turn into a redemption arc of any sort, but it's kind of interesting to have these type of situations occur, and I quite liked it. Then we move on to another scene where Dot Barrett is hating on Lance, and they're having like a fun little hangout with each other, and then they explain the coin system, which kind of was alluded to earlier on. And basically there's this kind of like clock face thing that has each of the houses represented on a hand, and it moves across a clock face based on how many coins they have. So that's kind of interesting, but it doesn't really mean much. And basically they just outline the fact that you have to get the most coins in order to have a Divine Visionary, right? So nothing too interesting there. Then we move on to another scene where Mash is cleaning out the owl coop because he had to be punished for some previous transgression he had, where the Dumbledore equivalent, Wahlberg, was basically like, I agree with what you did, but I can't really leave you go, so I'm just going to punish you very mildly, and, we'll be fine. And then Lance shows up to try to help him because he knows that Mash is going to be targeted, and, well, they end up getting attacked. And then they get attacked by two Magus Lupus members, and these are two pretty good fights. I quite like them. Then they get introduced to Abyss, who is basically the second strongest member of Abel's group, sort of. Later, we see that Tom, the Oliver Wood equivalent, has weakened magic for some reason. And Lemon gives Mash a token, this kind of little cream puff that has a little ribbon like her, in order to, kind of give him a good luck charm. And it's kind of cute that they do that. Then she gets taken, and then they have to go to the underground region of the school, and this is basically like the Chamber of Secrets type storyline, which I quite like. I think that's good. And they go underground. Then we have Dot fight this guy called Xuan, or Xuan. I don't know if that's Xuan or Sean or some other word, some other pronunciation, but I'll go with Sean because that's just easiest to say. And it's kind of interesting. I quite like the fight. While this is happening, we get a scene that explains that Innocent Zero has escaped, which reminds me a lot of the Azkaban storyline. Then Mash and Abyss meet again, and then Lance has to fight this guy called Worth Mauld, and then we get introduced to Rain, who's Finn's older brother. Then Dot and Finn have to fight this girl called Love Cute, and then Mash has a big fight with Abyss, and then Rain versus the Fourth Fang, which is the fourth seat of this group. And then Mash has to fight Rain very shortly for miscommunication, basically. And then Mash has to battle Abel for the big final climactic kind of fight here of the arc. And he also ends up having to fight against this guy called Cell War for a little bit. And this guy happens to be an Innocent Zero member. So overall, lots of good fights here. It's kind of a lot of action, and it's kind of different because it kind of picks up the pace a lot from the first two arcs, and it kind of gets really serious all of a sudden. But it does still have those moments of levity between the kind of scenes that generally I still think is not the best, but I like everything else about the series quite a lot. So I'm still happy with what I'm reading here, right? So yeah, in terms of characters, we're just going to introduce a bunch of Magia Lupus people, and most of them are not that interesting. I like Abyss and I like Abel, but all of the other ones are pretty unimportant, right? And I'm guessing they will come back later because none of them died, but it's not really all that important. Cell War is also very cool. He has this kind of like priest motif, I guess, the way he's dressed, and of course because he has this kind of like thorn crown on his head, it kind of reminds me of Jesus, and I'm not really sure what the point of that parallel is because obviously it's intentional. So I'm curious to see what the point of that is. Maybe there's this kind of religious zealotry that this guy's trying to convey. But other than that, we don't really learn too much about him. We of course get introduced to Rain as well, and he's an old divine visionary. He's Finn's older brother, and he's just a cool guy like Lance, but he doesn't have that kind of like tick that Lance has for his sister. So I'm guessing Rain is kind of also some sort of secret agent because he works with Wahlberg for some reason, and he's more or less like the Harry Potter character, like more so than Mash, right? Like Rain has a connection with the headmaster and stuff like that, and he's kind of part of this secret battle that's happening. So he's kind of more or less the Harry Potter character, which is cool. In terms of world building, we get introduced to the houses, how the way the coins are counted. We learn about anti-magic powers, which is called the Red Eye or something like that. It's this kind of curse mark thing. Kind of reminds me of like a Sharingan or something. We learn about seconds and high-level magic, and there's also different types of magic. There's like self-empowering magic, there's normal elementary magic, there's the second, which is the stronger version of elementary magic, and there's a few other things, but I don't really remember because it was explained, but it doesn't really matter all that much. It was mostly just a way to explain second and what it means to kind of do that, right? We get introduced to Innocent Zero, which is this kind of criminal organization, and we learn about this cross mark that Dot has on his head that gives him this kind of heightened magic ability, which is different from unleashing a second line across your face, right? So that's kind of interesting, and I quite like that. I'm very curious to see how this affects Dot's characterization going forward, because at this point, I'm basically caught up to everything I read a few years ago when I read it digitally, right? So I'm very excited to see a bunch of new stuff coming in. Art-wise, it's good. There's still no fan service, so it's still a safe series in that sense. But I can see it going the other way and kind of trying to get some fan service going on at some point, because you know all kind of series end up leaning on that at some point in Japan, right? So you know, it's safe for now, but be aware that it might change. In terms of a rating, though, this is a 4.5 out of 5. I really enjoyed it. A lot of the fights were really, really good, and overall it was very fun. It's definitely an improvement over the first two arcs, and I'm very excited to see where it goes from here, right? So that's it for that. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below. Let me know your thought. And thank you guys so much for watching. See you guys later.